What's up, Football Daily? Today we're counting down 10 players who your club needs to upgrade. Let's go. 10. Ryan Fraser. Newcastle have enjoyed an incredibly strong finish to the Premier League campaign, with only Brentford, Liverpool and Man City taking more points from their previous 6 games at the time of recording. But while the Saudi-backed club's extensive January business and appointment of Eddie Howe has undoubtedly worked, there is still a lot to do. And an area of the side in which the new owners are yet to recruit effectively is the forward line. Chris Wood has scored just twice in 16 appearances, with midfielder Bruno Guimaraes providing most of the goals. But as long as Callum Wilson can remain fit, it's the right-hand side of the attack that needs the most work, and before getting injured in April, Ryan Fraser was Eddie Howe's first choice in that position. The former Bournemouth man has struggled at St James's Park this term, creating just 1.5 chances per 90, down from 2.5 last season, while his expected assists per 90 stands at just 0.14, less than half of what he was producing on the south coast. This is only partly his fault, given he is a left winger by trade, and the Magpies' only other options on the right are Miguel Almiron and Jacob Murphy, who have 4 goal involvements between them this term. If Newcastle want to consolidate themselves in the top half next season, then an upgrade on the right is essential. 9. Scott McTominay. Man United have had problems all over the pitch this season, and the right back and centre back positions have been under particular scrutiny. But their main dilemma remains in midfield, and with Paul Pogba and Nemanja Matic both leaving this summer, they may need to recruit 2 new players in that area. And of those who remain, there is a clear weak link. Scott McTominay may have surpassed expectations by making himself a part of the United first team, but if decided to make meaningful progress under Erik ten Hag, he will most likely need to become a bench option. For years, the Red Devils' defensive woes have come from a leaky midfield, and while the Scotland international is capable of putting in excellent displays in big games, his lack of positional discipline and defensive nous has cost the side too often, with his tackle success rate falling from 81% last season to 67% this term. He remains strong in the air and at 6'4" has good physical attributes, but McTominay is simply too average in other areas of his game to be first choice in a team of United's ambitions, especially given how weak they already are in the centre of the park. They may be targeting Frenkie de Jong, but it shouldn't take a player of that calibre for fans to notice the difference. 8. Youssouf En-Nesyri. It's been a season of struggle for Sevilla star Youssouf En-Nesyri, with injuries and the AFCON meaning he played just 32 minutes of La Liga action between September and February. But since returning to the side, it's clear he's no longer as trusted by manager Julen Lopetegui. And while his recent equaliser against Atletico Madrid secured the club's entry into the Champions League, his output has dropped off massively this term. Only 4 players scored more than his 18 La Liga goals in 2021, but until the end of April he had just 3 to his name in 21-22. And it's not just down to his prolonged absences. En-Nesyri's shots have dropped from 3 per 90 to 2.4, and he's not picking up the kind of space as he was before, with his expected goals per 90 coming down over a third from 0.58 to 0.38. And he's hardly been involved in other phases of the attack either, with his shot-creating actions falling from 1.4 per 90 to 0.9, a figure that ranks him in the bottom 1% of strikers. 3 months into the season, Sevilla looked like title hopefuls, but they've ended the campaign scraping the top 4. With a more consistent goal scorer in the side, they could have achieved much more. 7. Alexis Saelemaekers. Over to a side that are odds on to achieve greatness this year, as Milan are just a game away from securing their first Scudetto in 11 years. But this has come despite the Rossoneri possessing a pretty thin squad, and thanks to @Menez18's suggestion on Twitter, we're focusing on their right hand side. At just 22, Alexis Saelemaekers is still developing as a forward, but despite some promising displays at the start of the campaign, he's yet to show the consistency to suggest he can be a key player in Stefano Pioli's side, going into the final day with just a goal and 3 assists in 35 Serie A appearances. It's not for lack of application. The Belgian winger is one of Milan's top pressers and also makes over 3 tackles and interceptions a game. But despite also being one of the side's top creators, his 1.7 key passes per 90 is under par, especially given that the quality of his delivery is far from perfect. With Rafa Leão on the left more focused on scoring, it's essential Milan recruit someone on the opposite flank who can either operate at a similar level to him or excel on the creative side. Right now, Saelemaekers doesn't look capable of doing either. 6. Tim Ream. Thanks to @EarlGeneral for suggesting this one. It may be harsh to stick Tim Ream in here considering he played more minutes than anyone else in Fulham's championship winning campaign, but if the Cottagers want to break their yo-yo cycle, which is now run for 5 straight seasons, an upgrade at centre-back would be wise. The 34-year-old has been an excellent servant to Fulham since joining from Bolton in 2015, making over 250 appearances for the West London club. But while he was part of a backline that kept the 3rd best defensive record in the English second tier this term, the US international international has struggled in both his outings in the Premier League, only being afforded 7 appearances by former manager Scott Parker in 2021. That season they had Joachim Andersen on loan from Lyon, and with limited quality in reserve, they probably need to go in for a similar level of defender to partner Tosin Adarabioyo next term, someone who is both physically and technically capable to deal with the increasing intensity of the English top flight. 5. Joel Ward. Speaking of Joachim Andersen, there are few clubs across Europe that have done as good business as Crystal Palace in the last year, with the South London outfit almost totally reshaping their squad ahead of the 21-22 season to great effect. Only the top 4 and Wolves have kept a better defensive record, and they could record their best ever Premier League points tally with 2 games remaining, doing so while playing the most attractive football seen at Selhurst Park for some years. But if Patrick Vieira wants to further evolve the side next season, the right-back slot should be on his agenda. Palace have been excellent defensively, but at the other end, Michael Olise is the only first-team regular creating over 1.5 chances a game, and while Eberechi Eze's return from injury is a plus in this regard, they will also lose some of their attacking potency when Conor Gallagher returns to Chelsea. Getting more output from the fullback positions would go some way to diversifying their threat in the final third, and with Tyrick Mitchell just 22, it's time to upgrade right-back, where Joel Ward and Nathaniel Clyne are both in their 30s. The pair don't even produce as much as 1 chance per 90 combined, with Ward's 0.3 key passes a match the lowest of any regular fullback in the league. He may have served Palace well over the years and is entering his 2nd decade at the club this summer, but for Palace to progress, they need a more progressive right-back. 4. Caglar Soyuncu. On this week's Scout Report over on EFD, we suggested Torino's Bremer as an antidote to Leicester's defensive woes, and a big part of that has been the decline of Çağlar Söyüncü. The Turkish centre-back was initially a success at the King Power, partnering Johnny Evans well in the 2019-20 campaign and even getting named in the Premier League Team of the Year. But following Wesley Fofana's arrival last term, it was clear who the more complete player was, and in the absence of the Frenchman this term, coupled with Evans' injury issues, Soyuncu's limitations have been laid bare. His aggressive approach hasn't complemented a makeshift back line, which has instead needed calm leadership, with errors aplenty and no one at the club getting booked more often. That's not to say Soyuncu doesn't have a future at the club, but soon to be 26, he can no longer put his inconsistencies down to youthful naivety. Leicester need to tighten up next year, and that means upgrading the centre of defence. 3. Felipe. And on the subject of defences in decline, Atletico Madrid are somehow ending the season with the 10th best defensive record in Spain, unthinkable for a side which last conceded over 30 goals in 2012-13. But while that can partly be attributed to the uncharacteristically poor form of Jan Oblak in the first half of the season, their backline has been far from faultless. And despite impressing in his first 2 years at the club, Felipe has declined this term. He now wins just 62% of his aerial duels, down from 73% last season. His tackle success rate has also dropped, while his poor discipline has also seen him sent off 3 times. This wouldn't look so bad if Felipe was excellent on the ball or was a super active ball winner, but he's neither of those things, ranking in the bottom 50% of centre-backs for pass completion and in the bottom 25% for progressive passes and tackles. He was the last centre-half signed by Diego Simeone all the way back in 2019. Its time-lost Colchoneros went back into the market. 2. Michail Antonio. With 9 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League this term, Michail Antonio has enjoyed his most productive season in the English top flight. However, over half of those came in the first 6 games of the campaign, and he scored just 4 times in 2022, with the Hammers winning just twice against Everton and Norwich since March. There's no doubt Antonio has made himself incredibly useful at centre-forward, hitting 29 league goals since the start of 2019-20. But his lack of technical prowess has been telling at points, and he was never really meant to be the club's starting striker. That was Sebastian Haller, who was sold to Ajax as a sizable loss last year after failing to impress. Luckily, goal contributions have come from elsewhere, in particular Jared Bowen, but a lights-out centre-forward would see David Moyes' side establish themselves as regular top 6 contenders. At the moment, they're still shrugging off their label as pretenders. 1. Aaron Ramsey. Okay, so Aaron Ramsey hasn't even been at Juventus since January and could yet make his loan move to Rangers permanent. But his absence, plus Paulo Dybala's impending departure, has only reiterated the Bianconeri's need for a creator. Juan Cuadrado, soon to be 34, remains the side's main provider of goal-scoring opportunities, and with such a weak left side, the old lady's attack is incredibly lopsided, over-reliant on Chiesa and Ronaldo last term, and the link-up between Dybala, Morata and Vlahovic this season. and with Morata's future also up in the air, there will be a gaping hole in the centre. This is where most fans would have hoped Ramsey to have established himself by now, but aside from a few promising spells, he's never looked at home in Turin, while Rodrigo Bentancur's sale to Spurs has meant Manuel Locatelli is doing almost as much defensive work as he was at Sassuolo. It would probably prove difficult, but Roma's Lorenzo Pellegrini would be a dream signing in this regard. So those were 10 players who desperately need upgrading, but what did you make of our list? Were any of our entries too harsh? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like and subscribe to Football Daily for more great content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.